by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Your hosts are Joseph and Madison Whalen, a father and daughter team making their way through the challenges of the teenage years.
Welcome to Insights into Teens. This is episode 168, Compassion Through Understanding. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my caring and understanding co-host, Madison Whalen.
Okay, I can accept that.
I'm okay with that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you fit both of those?
I think so. Hi, everybody.
Okay, good. So how you doing today, Maddie?
I'm doing pretty good.
Anything exciting this week?
Ending the marking periods tomorrow.
Oh, cha-ching, that's money time.
You know, when the report card.
Right, when your quarterly bribe comes out.
It's not a bribe.
Hey, I'm not above bribing my kids to do good in school. It's worked so far.
Fair enough.
So today we are talking about compassion through understanding. Compassion is the cornerstone of human interaction. Being compassionate makes us better people. But to be compassionate, we need to be able to better understand and relate to people's emotions and feelings. On today's episode of Insights into Teens, that's exactly what we'll be talking about. But before we do that, I have to beg, borrow, and plead to have our listeners subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Teens. Audio and video versions can be listed as Insights into Things, pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast these days. I would also invite you to write in, give us your feedback. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can hit us on Twitter at twitter.com/insights_things, or links to all that and more can be found on our website at www.insightsintothings.com. Are we ready?
Yep.
Here we go. So once again, we're going to the well. I think we'll get a couple more out of kidshealth.org for the research on this one because they were such a great source. They tell us that emotions influence every decision and action we take in life. The complexity of emotions varies depending on the person, circumstances, and environment. The ability to accurately read the emotions of others is a key component to our ability to empathize with others and what triggers compassion in us. In order to understand emotions, it's important to be able to predict people's feelings, then be able to accurately read those feelings. So how do you predict feelings? So imagine yourself in this situation. A friend asks you to a party. You learn that all the girls in your group were invited except for Paula. How do you think Paula will feel when she finds out? Would she be A, angry, B, sad, C, hurt, D, excluded, E, confused, F, nervous, G, embarrassed, or H, would she just be indifferent? Now, you probably came up with your answer by putting yourself in Paula's shoes and imagining how you'd feel. Most people in this situation will feel some or all emotions A through D, angry, sad, hurt, and excluded. It's not as likely that someone who is left out will feel confused, nervous, embarrassed, or indifferent. Being able to predict how people might feel is a part of emotional intelligence, or EQ for short. It's a skill we can all develop with practice, and one we've talked about over the past few episodes on the podcast.
When we understand how other people are likely to feel, it can guide our interactions with them. For example, in the party example above, what if Paula asks, "Are you going to Reagan's party?" Knowing that she wasn't invited probably influences how you respond. You might say, or avoid saying, any of the following. A. Yes, I'm going. Are you? B. Yes, I'm going. I feel awkward telling you. Is it true that she didn't invite you? C. Yes, everyone's going. D. Of course I'm going. It's going to be the best party of the whole year. E. Yes, I'm sorry you weren't invited. I don't think Reagan meant to hurt your feelings. I heard her parents only allowed her to ask a few people. If you didn't know Paula was invited, you might answer with A, C, or D. Because you don't know the full story, though... Wait, did I say that if you didn't know?
Because you know the full... You did say you didn't, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to be sure.
Just read it the way it's written. It's easier that way.
Because you know the full story, though, you're more likely to consider Paula's feelings and answer with B or E. Answers C and D are the kinds of things you say when you know for sure the other person has been invited.
So the other thing you can do is read body language. Sometimes you get more information about a situation from what a person doesn't say. Part of emotional intelligence is reading the signals people send and not taking them into account. And taking them in. Now you got me all confused.
Sorry.
Part of emotional intelligence is reading the signals people send and taking them into account. Let's say Paula approaches you looking upset and she asks, "Are you going to Reagan's party on Saturday?" Her emotional signals, her body language and facial expression clue you in that Paula knows she wasn't invited. In that situation, you might still answer with option A, but you're probably more likely to choose B or E.
But what if Paula approaches you looking cheerful and says, "Hey, I heard Reagan's having a party this weekend. Are you going?" Based on her body language, you might include, "Oh, she doesn't know and she's expecting an invite." If you have good EQ, you probably feel conflicted about telling Paula you're going to the party when you know she's the only one who's not invited. Even though it's up to Paula to manage her emotions, you probably feel empathy for her. You know that how you respond can help her feel supported or make her feel worse, so you choose your words accordingly.
So how do you think, and we'll go back to our famous scale of 1 to 10, how do you think your ability to read other people's emotions are on that scale of 1 to 10?
I'd say maybe an 8.
You're pretty good at it.
Sure.
Now, is that through intuition? Is that through facial expression and body language? Like, how do you think what clues do you pick up on?
Well, like, if I think any of my friends don't feel great, they normally show it in their expressions, or they show it by not really, like, cracking jokes, or, like, their voice is different, because, especially with you and Mommy, I can kind of catch the tones of your voice when I can tell you guys are upset, and that's kind of why sometimes I ask Mommy, "Hey, is something up?" even when, like, nothing's really up, because I kind of know the tone of voice she uses, and I can tell, like, when she's fine, when she gives me a voice that I know basically signals that she is okay.
And, of course, when she gives you the mom voice, she's mad at you.
Yep.
Right? Do I have a dad voice when I'm mad?
You don't bring it out often, but I've heard it. Really what happens is you get a lot less accentuated, your like facial expression is like much more solid and less expressive. Your voice like tends to deepen, or you just scream.
I just scream. So if I'm not screaming and I just look like a clown, then I'm in a good mood then. That's what it sounds like.
Kind of. See, good mood.
So how do you think you are at expressing your feelings without saying your feelings? Do you think you express your feelings through body language, vocal inflection? Do you think you're good at it? Do you think you conceal it? What's your opinion? That would be the wrong camera. Yes, thank you.
Oh, it's fine. You'll fix it in post, probably.
Nah, I'm just going to leave it.
Hey, it's for the comedy, I guess.
Bloopers, baby. We're going to have a bloopers reel someday.
Yep, someday. At certain points, I definitely think I can make it obvious that I'm not feeling great without saying anything, and then other times, I actively try to conceal it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times you're very blatant about it. How was your day today? It was good, I guess. Oh, you guess. All right, that means we need to talk about it. Hang on, let me settle in for this roller coaster.
Okay, fair enough. I can be pretty blatant in, when I kind of say it. I don't exactly have to say the day was bad, but most of the time I kind of just say, I guess, or it was fine, sorta.
Yeah, it's fairly easy to read it on you. Do you think that Mommy and Daddy do a good job of reading it? And not only do we do a good job of reading it, do we do a good job reacting to it? Because reading it and reacting to it are two very different things.
Well, I definitely think you and Mommy read it pretty well. Because, again, you basically said that it can be pretty obvious when I'm not feeling great, and even Mommy has, her moments when I'm not feeling great, and, she asks me what's wrong. I definitely think we're to a point when, it's much easier, you can, I already, tell you guys how I feel, but even when, I don't want to say anything, you guys can tell, at times. And I feel you and Mommy pretty much do the point, but, I think whenever I do say it's oh, the day's been fine, I guess, that's, I guess a big,
Yeah, we like certainty. We don't like guessing. So your friends, when your friends, and I don't necessarily mean with you, but if you have a friend who's having issues or you feel that they're having issues, do your other friends pick up on it, or do you kind of have to clue them into it being, a bit more empathetic and kind of coach them into how they respond?
I've never really had to coach somebody, I think. And most of the time, I kind of just have one-on-ones with some of my friends if I don't think they're feeling great, because I don't really hang around in big groups. If I don't think someone's feeling great, I'll kind of, sit down and talk with them. And most of the time, it's not really with any other of our friends.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, I think we kind of have a firm grasp on how we're going to be reading people's emotions here. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about making sense of people's reactions. We'll be right back.
Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Talking to real teens about real teen problems. Explore issues from braces to puberty, social anxiety to financial responsibility. Each week, we talk about the topics concerning today's youth. We look at how the issues affect teens, how to cope with these issues, and how parents, friends, and loved ones can help teens handle these challenges. Check out our video episodes on youtube.com/insightsintothings. Catch our audio versions on podcast.insightsintoteens.com or on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens. Today we're talking about compassion through understanding. And now we're going to talk about making sense of reactions. The skill of understanding others helps us predict what people might feel in a certain situation, but it also allows us to make sense of how people react. For example, in homeroom at 8 a.m., your friend is smiling, friendly, and full of energy. Later that afternoon, he looks upset, almost like he might cry. Which explanation is your best guess for what might have happened between these two times? A. He had a fight with his girlfriend at lunch and now they're not talking. B. He passed the 4th period algebra exam. C. he just found out he didn't make the final cut for varsity basketball. D. The chemistry teacher assigned a lot of homework. Or E. He probably just had a bad day.
You likely ruled out option B instantly. Emotional intelligence tells you that your friend's reaction looks more like failing an exam than passing. If your friend had a bad day or a lot of homework, options D or E, he might seem stressed out, tired, or worn out, but he probably wouldn't be on the verge of tears. Ruling out those options lets you zero in on what's most likely to be upsetting your friend, either options A or C. People who are skilled at understanding others, I lost my spot. People who are skilled at understanding others imagine another person's feelings. Like, I think he'll feel awful if I say that to him. They're able to relate to how that person reacts to things. Oh, I completely get what she got angry like that over. No wonder. Understanding how others feel, act, and react helps us build better relationships. Boy, I stumbled through that one, didn't I? Jeez.
Yep, you did. It's all good.
All you on this one. Take us out strong here.
Thank you. So how exactly do you build this skill? It's not always easy to predict or understand how someone else feels. Some people are better at it than others, but just about everyone can improve with practice. Wow, that's the big thing with all this, I guess.
Keep practicing.
Understanding others is all about watching and listening. It starts with watching, not while they sleep.
That's creepy.
If you see someone trip and fall, you probably wince, ouch, as if that happened to you. We have a natural tendency to sense what others feel just by watching them. Scientists think there's a biological reason for this. They believe that brain cells called, quote, mirror neurons activate in the same way whether we do something ourselves or watch another person do it.
I guess I probably should have read this script over. It's kind of rough the way it's written. Huh? Anyway, try these ways to develop your observation skills. Look at people's expressions and body language. Next time you're at the mall, in the coffee shop, or on the subway or bus, try this. Look around and try to identify how people might be feeling based on their body language, their facial expressions, and what they're doing. The girl with the textbooks on her knee might have an exam coming up. Does she seem confident or overstressed? What about the guy with his eyes closed? Is he feeling peaceful, tired, or upset? Read books, watch movies that have realistic portrayals of human emotions. Pay attention to how different characters feel and act. Try to understand why the characters feel the way they do. Based on those emotions, predict what a character will do next. Or see if you could explain why a character did what he or she did.
The skill also improves with listening. People who are good at understanding others are usually good listeners. Research shows that the better someone listens, the more connected that person feels with the person who is talking. This produces a feeling of bonding and closeness. Most of us rate ourselves as good listeners. After all, listening seems like such a simple, basic thing to do. But often we're so busy thinking of what we want to say that we don't listen as much as we'd like. Here are some ways to build good listening skills. The first being to practice listening well in everyday conversations. Really pay attention to what the other person is saying. Train yourself to think of listening as more important than talking.
Tune into your feelings. Tune into feelings as well as story. When a friend tells you about something, try to imagine how he or she might have felt. Make statements that show you're trying to understand your friend's experience, like, oh, that must have felt amazing, or that must be upsetting for you. You'll absolutely notice that you feel closer, more in sync with the person. You might find you can predict what your friend will say next. Take time to listen to someone in depth. Interview a friend or family member about a special time in their life. For example, ask your parents about their wedding day, or get your grandparents to tell you about having their first grandchild. Try to imagine what the experience was really like for them. Ask them to tell you more about how they felt and why. So have you ever done that? Have you ever actually sat down and interviewed anyone and tried to get kind of a deeper story from them on things?
I mean, the biggest example I can get is with you guys, because I've asked you at various points kind of about your past, like how you guys first met, what was your wedding like, what was giving birth to me like, how were your...
I can't answer that one. That's totally mommy. That's a mommy question.
How were your lives before you guys met each other? How were your childhoods? How was my childhood? What kind of child was I like?
And how did that work out for you? Did you feel like you were getting the information you want? Did you get any emotion from it, or was it just a fact-finding mission?
I mean, I did definitely get a lot of emotion for it, like with Mommy talking about your guys' first date and, the emotions she was feeling at that time, or you talking about your life as a child and your and how like you and your feelings towards all your family members.
That bad, huh?
I mean, I'm sorry, but your dad doesn't seem like the best guy.
Yeah, he was. Anyway, we'll move on. So how are you at listening? Do you think you're a good listener?
Yeah.
Give an example.
So my one friend, and I at lunch, we kind of use that time with each other if we need to vent. And there have been times when, they've had to come to me and said, like, they've had a really rough day, and I, kind of, like, let them know, hey, I'm here, you can talk to me about it. And we've gotten into some pretty deep conversations, not even just about why they were stressed, but also, about the issues they were facing at home and just in general.
Okay, I think that's a good example. Now, when you have these kinds of conversations, do you try to look at it from their perspective and put yourself in their shoes and try to summon up the emotions that they would have been feeling under those circumstances to try to make it more meaningful and more realistic?
Yeah, sometimes when I hear some of the experiences, I think about what would happen if I was in that scenario, to kind of have a better understanding of their emotions that they go through.
Do you think you're very good at conveying emotions when you're telling people something, especially if it's something that you're either passionate about or maybe something that you're upset about? Do you think that your emotions come through in those conversations?
Yeah, because I've noticed that with, like, things that I have, like, an aggressive passion for, like my own personal beliefs, I tend to be very clear where my feelings kind of lie on that, and, like, it's aggressive to the point where you might think I'm angry, which I can be when thinking about that, but, it's for, like, a good purpose. Or when I'm just passionate about art or this really creative thing I thought about, I really like to tell people, and I'm very enthusiastic about it.
Okay. And I ask, I know the research itself talks mostly about listening, and I think listening is extremely important in these types of situations, especially in understanding someone else's situation. But I think talking and understanding how to express your feelings is as important as being able to read other people's, because if you struggle to express your own feelings and your own thoughts and get your own points across to other people, it's going to be very difficult for you to read other people as well.
Yeah, the thing is, I've had moments when I've had a difficult time conveying my emotions, and it's happened a lot throughout the past year where it's like sometimes I don't really know what I'm feeling. All I know is that I really don't feel good. I don't really know what caused it. I don't really know how to stop it. I just really don't know what to do or what anyone else can really do to help me.
Yeah, and I think that's really the root of the whole emotional intelligence theme that we've been trying to go over these last 8 episodes or so. It's being able to understand emotions, and one of the first ways to understand them is to be able to label them. You know, if you're feeling something that you've never felt before, it takes some reflection. It takes some time for you to analyze it and realize what it is and give it a name. And naming an emotion is really the first step to understanding it. And once you can understand that emotion, then you can recognize it in others. And recognizing those emotions in others allows you to, or it even compels you to be compassionate towards that person. Do you think you're a compassionate person?
Yeah, I would say I can be I'd say I'm decently compassionate, because the thing is, whenever one of my friends or anybody really kind of comes to me and has like their own issues, I try not to say too much, but I also show them that yes, I am listening, because sometimes I can understand the fact that sometimes people just need an outlet to let things out, and they don't always need like an answer. They just need to kind of let it all flow out, and maybe that would make them better understand it. And if they are looking for a solution, I at least try to give them a bit of comfort and offer, again, after putting myself in the situation, offer what I would do.
It's funny you say it that way, because I think that's the problem I often find myself in. I'm a solutions person. My job, my entire life has been about diagnosing a problem and providing a solution to it. And one of the things that I struggle with is when someone comes to me with a problem and they're not looking for a solution. They're looking for a sounding board. They're looking to get something off their chest, or to just vent, or just to talk about something. And I've learned over the years to kind of recognize that, first of all, that they're looking for that, and then turn off that problem solving portion of me, and then just ask questions, dig a little bit deeper, help them to unravel it. Like when you come to me, you may tell me that you have a particular problem. My first instinct isn't to offer solutions. It's to ask more probing questions. And it's to help you explore those feelings and explore those emotions. And then as you delve deeper in there, almost with kind of a guided tour of your emotions as I ask these questions, you come up with the solutions, or the person I'm talking to comes up with those solutions. So a lot of times understanding helps to lead someone down that path, that instead of just giving them an answer to it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel a lot of people really just need a way to vent. They don't always need to find a solution to something, because sometimes there may not be a good solution or any solution to a problem. And that's definitely something that I found with myself, is the fact that, like, I kind of like an analogy that you have for me is being a teapot on a stove. If you keep it clogged up and the steam keeps keeps getting hotter and hotter, eventually it's going to explode. So you need to let it out in smaller doses. And I find that I really, after like a day at school and like stuff happens, I really just need some time to vent, because I can't say anything in public, because, you know, that's not exactly whatever you call it. You can't really do that.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, so the answer might not be here's a solution to your problem. The answer might be, okay, I got hit with a lot of homework today. I got hit with 12 exams. I got a quiz at the end of the week. I got a project I got to do. I'm overwhelmed. Okay, you're right. You're overwhelmed. Get it off your chest. Get it out. Now what are you going to do about it? And now that you've released that pressure, now you can go back and deal with it. And sometimes that is the answer. The answer is there isn't an answer. I have to deal with it. Yeah. And I just have to get this frustration out because it's what's dragging me down and I can't do anything while I got this anchor tied to me. Exactly. So let me get rid of that anchor. Okay, I feel better. Now let's go take care of that stuff. So that's where I'm saying a lot of the times it's your own answer. You just need an outlet. And sometimes you kind of need someone to poke a stick in your cage to get you to release that because you don't want to bother people. You want to hold it in. You want to deal with it yourself. And sometimes that's overwhelming. So, I have a tendency of poking a stick in your cage, letting the air out of that balloon there and getting it back down to size again. And then once you do that and you get that off your chest and you release all that tension and frustration, you work very efficiently on things. So that's your solution. It's not a solution to the problem. It's a path forward. Yeah. And that's really what we're going for here. So we're going to take our second break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about turning all this understanding into compassion and what we can do with it. We'll be right back.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens. Today we're talking about compassion through understanding. And now we're going to understand how to turn compassion No.
Yeah, sure.
And now we're going to talk about turning understanding into compassion. Okay, that's much better. See, I'm tripping up too.
There you go.
After building your skills and understanding others, how do you use that knowledge? If you're like most people, you use it to help and support the people you care about. This is compassion, and compassion helps us form relationships. So try these 3 ways to be more compassionate. The first being to ask others what they need. If a friend is going through a difficult time, ask what you can do to help. If your friend says, "I don't know," think about what you'd want in the same situation, then offer to do something similar. Also try to show a sincere interest in others. Be curious about the people you know, not in a nosy or fake way, but in a way that shows you want to understand them a little better. For example, ask about the kinds of things they like to do, or about their feelings, ideas, and opinions.
And finally, act with kindness. When you hear gossip, ridicule, or unkind teasing, make it your first reaction to imagine how it would feel to be on the receiving end. That can help you tune in to the other person's feelings and refuse to join in. Even small acts of compassion can build positive social connectors. Try saying hi to someone who's sitting alone at lunch and see how it makes you feel. Scientists now know that strong social connections influence our health, happiness, and how long we live. And I think if there's anything that can be said about this topic, it's that there's an overall lack of compassion in society today. Society needs a big, giant dose of compassion shot in the arm there to get things going. And you see compassion. It's not that there's a absence of it, but it's the exception to the rule more than anything. And there are plenty of compassionate people out there, but sometimes we only see those in either extreme situations, and a lot of that has to do with media and the fact that negative things tend to sell ratings more than good things do. But just in everyday general life, a lot of people have a tendency of going through life with blinders on. I have my job and my place, and I have to get that done and get my projects done, and I don't take notice of other things around me. And sometimes it's a matter of just taking a few moments and recognizing other people. And it doesn't even need to be people in need. It could be someone who maybe helped you out, or someone who may need a little help or just a little pick-me-up. It could be someone that you interact with very infrequently, but when you do, you have a pleasant experience. Let them know. One of the advantages that I have at work is when we have a ticket system. So when people put tickets in, we resolve the tickets, fixed problems, whatever, then I'll send surveys out. And from time to time, people will respond to the surveys with comments. And usually these comments are almost always positive. And when I get positive comments like that, I'll reach back out to the person and follow up with them. I'll thank them for their feedback, and I'll encourage them to provide more. And that interaction itself, the appreciation of them showing appreciation, is a compassionate feeling that they don't expect to see, but it's something that brightens their day. And I think if we had a little bit more of that in our lives, I think society in general would benefit from it. What do you think?
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you there, because, I've seen it, because I will actively try to avoid the news, because it always just seems like absolute bad news, and it's very rare there's ever any good news. And if there's ever any good news for me, then it sometimes just means bad news for somebody else, and it's not always about the idea of compassion. And obviously, like you said, there are compassionate people out there. However, they're not really shown, and even at this point, it's almost seen as being fake, because it's like, oh, I just want to be seen as a nice person, even though I didn't actually do a good thing. And I definitely think that's a problem, like, with things like social media at this point, where it's like true compassion can't really be shown, and it's rare to come across something like that doesn't seem like it's obviously fake, or something that, like, people will claim to be is fake. So I definitely think that there needs to be more compassion going around, because I definitely think that could, benefit everybody.
Yeah. And I mentioned to you earlier in the week, so obviously the podcast isn't what I do professionally. This is a hobby that we do on the side. And I don't push my podcasts at work. I don't advertise them. I don't pass it around. I don't give flyers out or anything like that. A couple people that I talk to on a regular basis know that I do them. So I went to walk through the cafeteria the other day to heat my lunch up, because I usually eat my lunch at my desk. And on the way back to my desk, there is a woman who's in the lunchroom every day at the same time when I'm getting my lunch, and, pleasant conversation. We don't really engage in a lot of conversation usually, but obviously we're civil with each other. And she was on the phone with someone at the time, and I'm walking by, and she put the phone on hold and put the phone down and pulled me aside and complimented me on the podcast and said she really enjoyed the podcast. Now, I don't know where she heard about the podcast, because I don't advertise it, like I said, but that was something that I took heart to. knowing that somebody else appreciates, because it's a hobby, but we put a lot of work into the podcast.
Yeah.
And knowing that somebody else appreciates that kind of, it gives you that shot in the arm. It gives you that dose of compassion to know that somebody else appreciates that type of thing. And I was very excited to come home and tell you about it because, it's not often that we get feedback on the podcast. And usually when we do, it's almost always positive. But hearing it firsthand like that really, really means a lot. There was a woman probably in our second season or so that I had engaged with in chat on one of the live chats sessions that we did. And she was an older woman, and she explained how she found it very helpful emotionally. The one particular episode, and off the top of my head, I don't remember which episode it was, but the way that we conducted it and the research that we did and the conversation that we had back and forth, it empowered her to take more control of those particular emotions that she had. And hearing that and knowing that we don't reach a huge audience, but the audience that we do reach is somewhat impactful and in a positive way, kind of makes me feel good about what we do. And I'm hoping that passion and that compassion that we put into the show helps to make the world a little bit better. We're not changing things. We're not solving world hunger or anything like that here, but that little bit of extra effort. And I think if everyone did that, and I'm not saying everyone go out and start a podcast because that's too much competition.
Yeah.
But if everyone took that time, compliment someone on the fact that they look nice today, or thank them for holding the door open for you, or whatever it is, those little things, those little bits of compassion add up, just like those little frustrations add up. But you don't explode from the compassions. So it's okay to have more and more compassion out there. And I think understanding other people's emotions and being able to read other people allows us to react compassionately. Notice when somebody kind of needs a pat on the back, and don't be afraid to do that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, because you never really know what somebody else is going through, and just saying one compliment could mean a lot to them.
Absolutely. And we all have confrontation in our lives every day almost. And the one thing that you have to keep in mind is maybe that guy who honked his horn at you on the street or made a rude gesture to you, maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe something bad happened to him. Maybe something frustrating happened to him. Don't take those things to heart. Don't let those things be the ones that influence you negatively. Take compassion on that person. Give them the benefit of the doubt that, maybe he's having a bad day. Give him a wave. Give him, a head nod or a little apology or, it's okay. You'll get through the day type thing. Give him a little bit of encouragement and give him a little bit of understanding. I think that's all we had for the podcast today. We're going to take a quick break, come back and get your final thoughts and finish up the business.
All right. Okay, so like everything we've talked about in the past 8 episodes now, this is another skill that some people are going to be good at, other people are going to need more practice. But again, it's another skill that that you can practice and get better at. And again, like we said, compassion is really important and for the most part is completely beneficial. And I definitely feel like we need a lot more compassion, even if it's in simple ways. It doesn't have to be like big and extreme to where you'd be on the news. It can be something simple, because even the simple things can mean a lot to people.
Okay, well said. Before we do go, I want to once again invite our listening audience to Subscribe to Insights into Teens on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, or subscribe to Insights into Things, which is video and audio. You can also email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast, or you can find us on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. And you.
And don't forget to check out our other two podcasts, Insights and Entertainment, hosted by you and Mommy, which, you still really need to do something about that. And Insights into Tomorrow, our monthly Not Really Anymore podcast, hosted by you and my brother Sam, which you haven't done in a while.
All right. Marketing 101 there, folks.
Hey, you know it.
That's it. Another one in the books.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network.
Welcome to Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Your hosts, Joseph and Michelle Whalen, a husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics, are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom.
Welcome to, that was kind of a sudden intro there, wasn't it? Kind of cut that off a little abruptly. A little out of practice. Welcome to Insights into Entertainment. This is episode 149. Franklin, my dear, I don't give a Zolocon. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my rested and relaxed co-host, Michelle.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing today, dear?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am frustrated because my camera 3 is not working and I had to quickly replace it.
I understand.
But other than the technical difficulties, I think I'm doing just fine.
That's good.
So been kind of on a hiatus for a while here.
Unintentional.
We just haven't had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we keep kind of trying to, I guess, revamp how we want the show to be, what we want the show to be. And we just haven't really found that right mix of what we actually want to do. We don't want to just regurgitate, the news stories.
We want to add value.
Right.
We want to add value to the things that we talk about.
Right. We want to make it so that, also you can go back to a past podcast and re-listen to it again and find some entertainment value from it. So,
and I think the weekly cadence got to be too much of a grind. It got to the point where we were struggling to find things.
Right.
To include in the
So
show.
it was definitely we want it to be quality, not necessarily quantity. So if it's something where it's once a month, it's once a month. If it's twice a month, it's twice a month. If it's,
I think at minimum once a month, I think we can come
probably
up with things to talk
probably
about. Especially now that convention season's going on.
Yeah.
So today we're not really going to be talking about much in the way of news. We're going to be talking about a couple of things that we had attended. We will be talking in our first segment about the Disney 100 exhibition at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. Then the next day, actually, we went to Zolocon. Zolocon.
It's your most favorite convention, toy show to go to.
So we
so you can say that.
We have a little bit of footage from both of those. We'll take a look at those. And then I kind of threw something together real quick for our third segment here. I thought it would be worthwhile, since our last podcast, we talked about swapping the Bobs again and Bob Iger coming back. Thought it'd be kind of interesting to kind of see where things are and what challenges Iger might be facing right now, and just get your opinion on that and how things are going with Disney, since he's come back into the fold. But before we do that, though, I would like to invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can get audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Entertainment, and you can get audio and video versions of all the network's podcasts listed as Insights into Things. You can find us pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast these days, Google, Apple, Spotify, and so forth. I would also invite you to write in, give us your feedback, tell us how we're doing, give us your suggestions on what you'd like us to talk about. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/insights_things. Or you can get links to all that and more on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. Shall we get into it?
Sure.
Here we go. So, Disney 100, Franklin Institute, Philadelphia. We were there
Last weekend.
last weekend, which was that opening
No,
weekend?
it was their second weekend.
Second weekend.
They opened the week before.
Right. So we were there early in the morning. We got there. We did the museum. We had a 12:30 time for the exhibit. And they have it in the same exhibit hall they have all the other ones. We've done the Star Wars one. We've done the Marvel one. What are your thoughts? Walk us through it.
So I have to say, if you are a fan of Disney, any aspect of Disney, being in this area, we're very fortunate because this is the only location within the United States that this is going to be. So there are people that are traveling from all over the country to come and see it because this is the only place. So that's kind of special to think that that we're kind of hosting it, even though we're not physically hosting it.
And let's be fair. Since they always do the D23 in California, the least they could do is give the East
right,
Coast
exactly, and that's when you think about all of the D23 events and everything else. It's usually always Florida or it's California. So to actually have it, in Philadelphia. So really for anybody that's within, a couple of hours, and you're a Disney fan, this is a look into, behind the scenes stuff that you don't normally get to see. Disney has been doing a lot of different, behind the scenes shows on Disney Plus, like Behind the Vault, or all these different shows. There's a couple of different ones.
You mean that show that you started watching again without me? That Disney show?
No, the other one that we already watched.
The other one that you're watching.
No, we already watched it.
Well, I thought you stopped at one point.
That's the attraction one. That's the other one.
I know there was one of them. There was one that you left me out of. I
right.
know that.
Well, anyway, there's various different shows that are on that Disney Plus is running, that they've been running, where they give you some of these behind the scene things from the archives. Look at stuff that, unless you work for the Disney Corporation, you've never seen. So this is such an opportunity to be able to see so many different things from so many different decades, going back 100 years really with the company when you think about it, and different aspects of it. So you have the animated part of it, you have the music part of it, you have the attractions, so they break down the whole exhibit into, I think they had it in 10, what did they call it? What did they call it? Why can't I think of the word?
I don't know. What do they call it?
The different themed galleries, the different galleries that, and each gallery had a different theme to it. One was costuming, one was the individual characters, one, like I said, was the music, technology even, showing some of the audio animatronic body parts, how they would manipulate a character to make it move. Obviously, then the drawing aspect of it, and even going from the original way that the movies and cartoons were drawn to now the computer animated. How do they make Rapunzel's hair move a certain way? And so they have all these little videos going on.
Algorithms like Google, right?
Exactly. So there's a lot to it and so much to really see. And unfortunately, there were so many people there that it's kind of hard to read everything and to look at everything. So fortunately, because we live so close by, it's definitely something that I want to get to again to be able to.
So how long is it actually?
It is actually in Philadelphia until August 27th. Okay. So you have quite a while, all of the summer, and all of the spring to get there.
This isn't the only location that they're going to be doing.
Right. So two other locations. So in April, it will actually open up in Munich. So it will be going simultaneously with
so they're probably showing
different things. And the one in Munich actually goes until September 3rd. So it goes a little bit beyond the Philadelphia one. And then the dates for London are actually fall of 2023. They actually don't even have their dates open yet. So I'm guessing maybe part of Munich's show and part of Philly's show might end up at the London show, I'm guessing.
So let's talk a little bit about what was on display. You mentioned there's multiple galleries. What were some of the galleries? How were they themed? What were some of the things that were there that kind of stuck out at you? The stuff that jumped.
Sure.
Out.
So they start off. They go sort of in a linear fashion, starting with the very beginning of everything and how the Disney company started. And you have the Alice shorts, and then Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and then obviously Mickey Mouse. So that's the progression. So they have some original drawings of all three of those with some videos playing as you're walking through that section. And then they kind of go through, and then it goes on to the whole, Mickey and everything that happened, how he kind of blew up, I guess, and how the company really kind of formed around that and everything. And then they had, the whole music section with the original songs for Snow White and because that was really their first musical. And so they had some of the original sheet music from that, and along with drawings and things like that. So you have that whole aspect. And then they go through the whole character development. How do they develop a character and basically take you through the different iterations of the character. So you have, here's their first sketch of a character, and then where does it go from there? And then to the maquettes, where here's our final model of a character. So now you can actually see it in a 3D form to be able to manipulate it and do other things with it.
So the exhibits themselves, there's a lot of static exhibits that are there. There's a lot of descriptive plaques to read, to give descriptions and stuff like that. But not all of it is static. There's some interactive exhibits that they have there. Can you talk a little bit about the interactive?
Well, the one interactive exhibit wasn't working, which I don't know if it hasn't been set up yet, if it was too early, or if it already broke down, which is kind of a shame if it's only been within the first week. They have a lot of different ones where you can listen to different presentations, and then they have other ones again where they had one where it was different colors, and you could pick different color schemes, and when you picked certain colors, it would show you which character was associated with that. I really didn't do much of the interactives. I don't know if you guys, because we weren't really walking around
We
together.
kind of blew through a good portion of that because most of the interactive. So the way the exhibit itself is arranged is you have small rooms that are then connected by hallways. And a lot of the interactive listening things and stuff like that are on the walls in those in those walkways. So the problem that I ran into is it was very crowded. So those walkways became bottlenecks.
Right.
So I kind of was rushing to get through those into a more open room. So we skipped a lot of that stuff. Most of the things that we went in and took a look at were just the static. You know, that's the iPod.
Right.
You know? But what I did notice is there's a lot of subtlety in there. There's a like when you walk into the first open room, the room itself is roughly round with large displays in the middle. Well, in the middle of these large projection displays are original novels like Grimm's fairy tales and stuff like that, which were they weren't just like library books. These were like the original novels that inspired the stories that Disney did. Which, if you didn't get up there and see those, you would have never realized.
And that was one that I had missed. Whereas one of the things that I ended up seeing was a Winnie the Pooh that was from the live action movie. And then they had from the live action Beauty and the Beast movie, they had models of two of the characters from that, and that was kind of like back around a corner. So there were certain things where you had to kind of wait in line to see because, you know, so many people were going to see, but if you went past it, you would have missed it because, you know, they were kind of back in the corner in a certain area.
So they did have a section there for one of the galleries was kind of dedicated to the parks and things that came out of the parks. Talk about that a little bit and what were some of the things that they had?
Yeah, so one of the things was they had one of the original ride vehicles from Peter Pan. So that was really cool to see. And really, that hasn't changed much over the years if you know, have gone to the park. You know, recently it pretty much looks the same. Then one of the bobsleds from the Matterhorn was there as well. One of the other things that was really cool, I don't think you had it in your video, but I know I took a picture of it, was they had the original name tags from when the Disneyland first opened. And I guess when they had first done them, they had numbers on them, and they had the number 1, which was Walt Disney's original name tag, you know, from the park. So that was really kind of interesting. And then they had some other models. So they had one of the dolls from It's a Small World. They had one of the characters from Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, one of the little devils there. One of the other things that was kind of cool was it was a model from... all you Disney fans are gonna yell at me because I'm.
Is it in the movie?
I don't think it was in the movie, but it was the Inner Space ride. But the little model, it's the Doom Buggy. It's, you know, but it was blue because on that ride it was the Omna I can't think of the ride vehicle, but it looks like it's a little dune buggy, except it's blue and there are people in it.
Maddie did catch
yeah,
that.
I was like, oh, look, there's my dune. Oh, it's not the dune buggy. But I knew what it was because I knew they used that same ride vehicle in other rides back in the day.
So of everything that they had there, what was the biggest highlight for you of the entire thing?
Oh, I don't know.
What jumped out at you the most?
I don't know. I don't know if there was any like one.
What was the most impressive thing?
What was the most impressive? Well, I guess the castle, but that wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just a model of the castle. I think, Walt's name badge, his name tag was probably, from a sentimental,
totally The thing that jumped out at me the most was the model of the Nautilus. Like, it was the hero model that was 12 feet
right,
long.
right,
It was monstrous.
right.
That was just impressive to come around the corner and see that.
Yeah, like everything was like, wow, cool. Like if they would have had something from the Haunted Mansion, that probably would have been like my.
But they didn't, and that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing is I don't know if other.
It's a shame because it was such a pet project of Walt's.
Right.
To do.
Right.
He was so involved in doing that.
Like I would have liked to have seen more stuff with the audio animatronics and a little bit more of the history and the technology for that. But again, they had the different movies going on. In one of the movies, one of the clips they had was a behind the scenes of the Haunted Mansion. So they did have that.
Let's run the video.
Sure,
you
sure.
Can kind of give us some commentary over the video and point out the things that catch your eye.
Sure. So this was a cute little pre-show, I guess, when you first, walked in.
And it was neatly done because it was when you're there, it's a hologram. It's a multi-screen 3-dimensional hologram.
Yeah. So of course, being able to see, Walt Disney like that was really kind of cool. Kind of creepy, but kind of cool all at the same time.
We believe in it all the way. We have confidence in our ability to do it right, and we work hard to do the best possible job. There's really no secret about our approach. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors, doing new things, because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. We're always exploring and experimenting.
Everybody ready? Then on with the show!
And move along.
Right.
Yeah, so this is the first section that you kind of walk through, and it shows, Oswald. Then this was an area where they had concepts of the different parks, different lands, and of course the Haunted Mansion right there. This was that book section that you were talking about. So this was talking about where they got the inspiration for their different movies and shorts and things like that. And this was, again, the innovation area and the multiplane, a miniature version of the multiplane camera. Talking about, again, that the first animated musical. And
that was
the
neat
original.
That they had the original scores there. For
Yeah. And the original, record album.
Yeah, like this is where you kind of you feel the history here.
Yeah. And then they had various different costumes from some of their live action. So this was from the Cruella movie.
So that's one of the interactive ones where you can listen to the...
Right, so they kind of had like a little history of Cruella.
What's this?
I don't know, some
science fiction.
Some science fiction-y thing, and some dice from a guy that wants to be a pilot, and oh look, it's chicken. No, it's pork.
Well, that's dinner.
And of course BB-8, and these were screen-used props that were here.
Right.
So some, they had a nice little Star Wars section, so it was kind of cool, obviously.
It was little, though.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising that it was as small as it was. Here's those books again.
Those books again.
Yeah, and there were different interactive things with that
each of them had screens on there.
And then this was the music section, talking about how influential music, and how much a part of it music is.
There's that creepy doll.
There's that creepy doll. It's a small world. And
this is neat because it actually lights up, like there's a shot of the actual ride there,
yeah.
And they lit up. Ironically enough, the devil not nearly as creepy as the other one was.
Yeah, definitely not as creepy as that. And he's from, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And then this was interesting, so...
in a creepy way.
In a creepy way. I have a story about the doll that we can talk about after the video. And then they had, a little bit of a Marvel section, so that was kind of nice
when
to be included.
When the movie franchise makes as much as it does, you
have to put something in from that. And then, of course, when you get to the end, there's a gift shop.
There is a gift shop.
So, they're very Disney of them.
Surprisingly poorly stocked gift shop, though.
Yeah. Not as many exclusive things as I would have expected.
This was actually seeing things from the musicals, too.
Yes, they did a whole, so along with the musical, they also had the Broadway aspect of it. And then here's that
the
Nautilus.
Like, it's literally 12 feet, 15 feet.
Yeah.
It's monstrous. And here's a creepy Olaf to go along with the other creepy characters we saw.
Because again, this was part of the Broadway show, and they developed it and made the character. And then this was, this really cool Cinderella's castle that was kind of towards the end of it with, the fireworks.
Not so loud fireworks.
Not so loud fireworks.
And you never get to watch fireworks when we're at the parks.
I very rarely do.
So this was
I never get to see them from the right angle. I'm usually seeing them from the back side of something because our daughter is not a fan of loud sounds. But now with, AirPods, she could.
Right.
And maybe I'll actually get to see fireworks the next time we go. So what was interesting about that Mickey doll was, again, one of the specials that's on Disney Plus where they kind of do a behind the scenes thing. And this is from one that was from a couple of years ago, so it's not new, but if you go on Disney Plus, you'll find it. They talk about that Mickey doll because when his shorts, became available, there was this woman who sewed this doll and had sent it to Walt, and he loved it so much that he kind of hired her to make them, but she couldn't make them fast enough, so she actually sold the pattern to McCall's, so that's what that doll represented there, where you could go and buy the pattern to make your own Mickey Mouse doll. So that was kind of, an interesting, side note of seeing that and then seeing it on the television show too.
So to wrap it all up, what are your final thoughts on the Disney 100 exhibition at the Franklin Institute?
If you're a fan, you have to go. You can't miss this opportunity, especially if you're somewhere within the East Coast, or if you're out in the West Coast and you want to fly out to Pennsylvania to Philadelphia and make a weekend trip of it. There's obviously enough stuff to do in the area. We're pretty historic in the Philadelphia area. We've had a couple of things happen here, so you could definitely make a week, a long weekend trip. What's nice is that if it's something where you don't want to do the rest of the museum, because if you if you go during the day with the exhibit, you get the rest of the Franklin Institute included in it. But if it's something where you don't want to do that, they do evening hours Thursday through Saturday from 5 to 8 p.m. So it's a little bit less because you're just doing the exhibit. But if you want to have, a full day, then obviously you can do the museum as well as the exhibit. And again, up until August 27th in Philadelphia. Then, unless you're in Munich, then that one starts in April. And then this fall, it'll be in London.
All right. And, like you said, we're going to probably go back again in the evening just for the exhibit.
Right.
Hopefully it won't be as crowded, but fortunately we have plenty of time to do it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about ZoloCon. We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. Welcome back to Insights into Entertainment. Now we get to talk about ZoloCon. Sorry, I can't help myself.
I know.
So, ZoloCon is a sci-fi and fantasy expo that focuses on vintage toys and comics from the 1970s and up. Tell us about it. Tell us about your experience. How did you enjoy it this year?
So, this past weekend, it's funny because as far as we knew, they only did it once a year. And then I guess last year or the year before, they started doing it twice a year. Now, this year, they'll actually be doing 3 different events. So this happened to be what they consider their winter edition. And it was actually the largest one to date. And we could definitely tell vendors all over the place in various different places, even in some parts of the building we had never even been to before. And every area was jam-packed. I don't think there was really any empty spaces this year.
Usually you'd go through there and you'd see like empty vendor tables or vendors that didn't show up for Sunday or something. Everybody was packed.
Yeah, everybody was there.
You have the main room where the centrifuge is, which is the highlight of the whole thing.
Right.
You have another room at that level and then a hallway that was packed.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the upstairs room.
Right.
Where you've got 2 rooms split by a bar, which, by the way, they had alcohol on the main floor this time.
Right,
so
right.
You can get drinks the whole time and get sloshed while you're buying lots of toys.
Right, right.
And then down on the first floor, they had vendors there, which they'd never had before.
And they were also doing tattoos.
And they were doing tattoos.
There were a couple of different tattoo artists, which that seems to be like the new thing at toy shows and conventions is to have a various tattoo artist. Go buy a Luke Skywalker and get a tattoo while you're here.
So not only did we find the exhibition area downstairs, we also happened to find the restaurant they had there that we never knew they had.
Right. And I think that's relatively new as well. So that might have, been something that they started. Well, I did see the one sign that they were normally open just like Fridays, I guess, during the week. So maybe on the weekends or if they have an event and they know there are going to be people around. Because I can't see just going there for a meal. It's kind of out of out of the
Sure.
way.
Well, and that's it. The complex that they're in
Right.
is an office complex.
Right.
There's a school in there.
Right.
There's a manufacturing in there.
So I could see like on a Friday.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
different stuff that's actually in there.
Right.
At what used to be the Brewster Aviation Plant before World War II, and then it became the Naval Testing Station as well. So again, Philadelphia, a lot of history just in that one little area
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
How were the crowds?
It was crowded, but it wasn't, it wasn't unmanageable. It was because everybody kind of flowed through, and it's done in such a way in the main room because it's where the centrifuge is. It's a big circular room. They do 2 rows. So they have the inner circle and they have the outer circle.
So it's like a dartboard.
Yeah. And they leave enough room in between so you definitely don't feel like you're, getting, claustrophobic. And usually what we end up doing, because there's so much on both sides, is we'll do each aisle, each circle twice. We'll do, the outside. So we look at just that,
So do the left side, then you do the right side, then you come to the inner circle, do the
right.
left side, do
And
the right
so that
side.
this way we get to see, everything, so that we're not, oh, did you see that? No, I was looking over here. And I never felt like there wasn't enough room to do that. They do have stairs to get to the upstairs area, but there's also elevators, which were very spacious because we ended up taking that.
It was like a cargo elevator.
Yeah. So
Which was themed, by the way.
yes, it was. It was space themed, so it was just so.
That was kinda neat.
That part is kind of cool, but they have something for everyone. They have if you're into pops, which that seems to be a
Which I'm not.
big seller. Almost everybody, you'll find a handful or 2 handfuls of vendors that are selling that. Then you have brand new toys that are out. Obviously the vintage toys, and that's what a lot of people obviously are going for. There was the one vendor, I think this was the first time we saw who does pins.
Yes.
Beautiful pins. So between Maddie and myself, we bought a bunch of different pins.
Well, and even the pendant guy that I had bought the one
Yeah, I was
thing
gonna
at,
say the
which I don't
pendant.
want to talk about because he hasn't gotten his
Right,
presents
he hasn't
yet, but-
gotten his stuff yet.
But the pendant guy that's there who hand makes his own pendants.
Right,
And it was neat because he's there interacting with it. He's not just selling his stuff.
right.
He's soliciting input for what you'd like to see him make
Right,
in his
like
next show.
what would you like me to make? So that's what's always so cool about these events is it's that unique item that you didn't know existed maybe, or you did and you're like, the one guy who we've seen, because again, we go to so many of these now that we run into a lot of the same vendors, but
Right.
it's like, okay, well, what do you have for this show? And the one guy, he sells Lego minifigures and he makes the Lego figures. This time around, I didn't buy a Lego figure from him. He was selling purses and wallets, and he had a Haunted Mansion purse, and I was like, all right, take my money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, again, something you never know what you're going to find when you go. And like you said, part of the whole ZoloCon experience is the venue itself. Just, knowing the history of that building and what happened there. And that was what was kind of cool too this time around, was because we were going to these other areas of the building, there were more pictures and plaques and different historical things about what had happened at that building in the past. So that's
The one
really kind of
thing
cool.
that I had noticed was while it was vendor heavy, it was kind of light on artists this time around. There wasn't many. Like last time, there was probably 3 or 4 times as many artists
Yeah.
on that inner ring there. Didn't get as many artists this time. So I don't know if it's really like it's not a comic book show,
Right.
even though there are guys that are selling comics.
Right.
So you don't get a lot of artists. They had the one author there who Maddie had bought her book last time.
Oh, okay.
There, but not really a lot in the way of artwork,
Right.
which I don't have enough room on my walls right now as it is, but
Right.
kind of noticed that was one of the big changes. They also changed the refreshment area up here this time because they put the alcohol down where the refreshments were, so you didn't have the seating area there. So
Right.
for someone like me who I can't stay on my feet that long, it was kind of difficult trying to find little nooks and so forth here. And in fact, when we left, I had to send you guys back up for
Right.
the last piece I wanted because I couldn't do all the walking.
Right. Right.
So happy with what you got? Did you get anything that was good?
Yeah, like I said, Maddie and I got a couple of pins. I ended up getting some Star Wars Pyrex, really for you, for lunches. So, yeah, interesting, unique things that wouldn't have thought to find.
And cue up the video.
Sure.
We can. This was video footage that we took while we were there, and I had Maddie walk around with the camera for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just to see what some of the things were that they had.
Yeah, so it's neat to see, because again, here's the big giant centrifuge and various space stuff just there while you're walking around.
But you can see how wide these aisles are.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's plenty of room
Yeah.
for the aisles, which is nice. So you're not elbow to elbow with people.
Right,
like you are at
right.
Some of the shows.
Right. Some of the sections, with individual vendors, if they had like a little corner and you wanted to go into the corner to see, then it might have been tight. But other than that, for the most part, and there were a lot of people there when we were there, so it wasn't like it was.
And this was Sunday that we were there.
Right. We usually always tend to go on a Sunday.
If we're not going for panels or for celebrities, which we usually don't go for, we'll almost always go on a Sunday. We'll go on the last day of the show because the vendors tend to be a lot more interested in selling their stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
and you have, a bunch of the vendors with homemade,
a couple of vendors with D&D stuff, dice
Right.
and dice towers, which, it's kind of nice to see that coming into its own now.
Right.
I really need to coach her on not to make some movements with the camera. A couple of these I had to slow down.
Go slow. Yeah, it's just such a nice, because like the one vendor selling coffee, he wasn't there at this one. So, here was
There's
the
your
pin.
Yeah.
And
ton of pins. Too.
Ton of different types of pins, and more on her website, which is nice. A couple of people dressed up, not a whole lot.
Not a lot.
But, there were some. They were doing a custom toy.
Well, they usually do a costume contest. Did they do that on Saturday? Is that why?
I don't know, maybe, but they were doing a custom toy contest.
Right, like a action figure.
Right.
Toy. Yeah.
Right. So again, lots of different pops.
I was talking to that particular vendor. He said he's got 3,000 pops back at his shop.
Oh, I bet.
Right now.
I bet. And then you have different video games. So if you play any, older systems, there's usually always a couple of different people selling that. Sometimes you get a t-shirt person selling things. The one t-shirt guy who does t-shirt artwork and pins, he happened to be there, so I picked up a t-shirt from him. Maddie picked up another pin of his because I follow him on Facebook, so I knew he had an Owl House, which is one of the shows that she and I watch on Disney Plus. So he had a pin that had come out a couple of months ago. So we knew he was going to be there, so we definitely made a beeline to go and get something from him.
Well,
so.
And the thing that's really nice is that when you have that many vendors there, you don't get a lot of duplicate vendors. You get a lot of variety, a lot of different things to choose from. And the vendors, like the interaction with the vendors I think since COVID, really, I've noticed, has been very positive. They're very outgoing. They're very engaging now.
Because everybody misses being around
Yeah.
people and talking to people and doing
And
this.
I struck up a conversation with one of the vendors. I was there for 15 minutes just talking about, how the shows have been going and how business has been and, different types of customers. And they're not just vendors. They're people that love the same things that you love too. So it's almost like a community at this point.
Oh,
which is kinda
absolutely.
nice.
Absolutely. And that was, they, one of the Facebook groups, they have another ZoloCon Facebook group, and it was one of the organizers of it. And he was just over the moon about, how well it went, and that this was, their largest, attendance to date, and that they couldn't speak, they had so many nice things to say about the vendors that were there, about the guests that were there, about just everything all around, just giving out the love.
It's a great show. It's a great venue. It's not far for us. It's in Warminster.
Right.
So it's 45 minutes?
About 45 minutes for us. Yeah.
So it's not that far from us, and it's just it's a nice day out. And it's kind of nice to go out there and buy stuff that you can't buy anywhere else.
Right, exactly. And that's what's always, and I think for us now, we've kind of, we've gotten to the point where we just have way too much stuff. You've seen our collection, and it's still, since we did that video, a year ago now, there's been more stuff.
And that was only a small sampling.
That wasn't even all of it. Where we've kind of come to the conclusion, we don't need to buy anything more. So for us to go to a show, it's really to see,
it's the experience.
It's the experience of it, or to find that.
Well,
unique...
I'm going to find stuff for other people now. Like I managed to get 2 really cool things for Sam this time.
Right.
That I couldn't get anywhere else. But that's kind of where I'm at.
Right. And Maddie ended up picking up a couple of things that she wouldn't have normally been able to find. And the things that I got, again, were that unique, individual, one-of-a-kind
the types
thing.
Of things that I would be looking to add to my collection at this point are things that would require me to mortgage the house. So I'm trying not to add things to my collection at this point.
Right. And or if you find that small little thing that, okay, that's not going to take up, a lot of room, or this adds to somebody else, or something to go with D&D, or something.
Yeah, that's really what I'm looking for now. I was kind of disappointed I didn't find any D&D minis there. Not that I need more minis either.
Right, you don't need more minis either. But that's that's the thing, is for us, it's also the experience of just going and being with the community.
Absolutely.
And again, this is the type of show where there aren't panels, there aren't the celebrities to go see. It's not like Monster Mania or Wizards or, some of the other shows. It's really
Fan Expo. It's not Wizards anymore. It'll always be Wizards.
It'll always be Wizards to me, just like Downtown Disney. You can't take that away from me.
All right. So I think we've covered that one pretty well. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get a feeler for how Bob's doing. The new old Bob. That's what I should have named this. The new old Bob show. We'll be right back.
Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Talking to real teens about real teen problems. Explore issues from braces to puberty, social anxiety to financial responsibility. Each week, we talk about the topics concerning today's youth. We look at how the issues affect teens, how to cope with these issues, and how parents, friends, and loved ones can help teens handle these challenges. Check out our video episodes on youtube.com/insightsintothings. Catch our audio versions on podcast.insightsintoteens.com.
on the web at insightsintothings.com.
So Bob is back at Disney. Not that Bob, the other Bob.
Right.
So
The original Bob.
We've swapped Bob's back to the old Bob. And, you know, he's facing some challenges. He's only supposed to be there for 2 years. Kind of a short time to turn things around. Chapek did a brilliant job of running things into the ground in the short amount of time that he was there. One of the first things that Iger's doing now that he's back is apparently slashing 7,000 jobs, and there's $5.5 billion in cost cutting he has to make somewhere. Should I feel bad that Disney's hard up for cash at this point in time?
And that's the thing is, are they really? Because I haven't seen anything where...
Not according to their stock price, they're not.
Right. That's, where it's kind of, huh?
Right. And it's almost imagined, because you look at some of the things that they're running into, and you're running into sluggish box office sales. You know, like, for instance, that new Quantumania movie came out and it tanked at the box office. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, box office sales are down in general since COVID.
Right.
That plus everyone knows that their stuff's going to come out on Disney Plus in a few months. So
right, so why
to go to the box office?
Right.
The streaming business has been hit hard because they've completely flooded the market and turned people off with crap, really. I mean, they're literally just churning out stuff to put on there. Right. And it's not quality stuff. So
the stuff that is good, they cancel after 2 seasons.
Yeah.
You know, there have been a number of shows that Maddie and I have started to watch, and it's like, oh, by the way, this is done now.
Right.
Like, oh, we couldn't even get like a 2nd season or a 3rd season? Like, okay.
Right.
Thanks. So it almost makes you not want to watch something.
Right.
Until it's
almost like
3 or 4
Google.
Seasons out.
Like, nobody wants to Google comes out with really cool stuff, but as soon as you get into it, they cancel it and it goes away. So nobody wants to do that. And Disney's putting themselves into the same position as well. They're canceling shows that I'm not even watching. Usually I'm the one that kills shows when I watch them and start getting into them.
Exactly.
So I think that $5.5 billion they're talking about really is it's a fictitious number that they think they should be making that. I don't think Disney's losing money. Disney's got more money than God. Mm-hmm. You know, when God needs to put a new world in place, he goes to Disney for a loan.
Is that what it does?
So it's not that Disney's losing money. They're just not making it as fast as they want to.
Okay.
And part of the problem you run into is, you know what? You keep coming out with superhero movies just for the sake of coming out with superhero movies. They finally reached a point of saturation with Marvel, and nobody wants to go see it anymore. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, they learned that lesson pretty fast with Star Wars.
Right.
You know, they flooded the market with Star Wars, trying to turn it into another Marvel, and that bit them in the butt really quick.
Right.
So I can't feel bad for Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So the real question comes down to, in 2 years, can they come up with a succession plan for Iger? And really what I have to ask is, do you need a succession plan for Iger? Is he really going to be gone in 2 years? Because given how much his incentive is for success, I don't see him going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I could see him still staying on as a consultant when he's still doing things. But then again, you also have to look at everything that's kind of going on right now in the state of Florida. That's a whole other kit and caboodle of that whole toxicness.
Well, and let's be honest. What's going on in Florida is a temporary thing.
Hopefully.
It's temporary because it's a pissing match between DeSantis and Disney.
Right.
And it really was a pissing match between DeSantis and Chapek.
Right.
And Chapek's out of the picture. And DeSantis is going to be out of the picture in 2024 when he runs for president anyway.
Hopefully.
So it doesn't really That's not that big a deal. In fact, Disney came out with a statement recently basically saying, we're going to focus on what we do best. We're going to provide the best experience for people, blah, blah. They took the high ground.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't buy into the taunting and the stick poking that DeSantis was trying to draw them into.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically said, look, we operate under numerous jurisdictions and numerous regulations around the world, and we make it work, and we'll make it work here.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I think what's going to happen with this little pissing match between DeSantis and Disney is the taxpayers are going to lose out.
Mm-hmm.
They skirted around the idea of having to take on all that debt for Reedy Creek by just restructuring the zone itself. And now DeSantis has his hand-picked group of
he
board
picked all of
members in
his
there.
board members and everything.
Well, the fact of the matter is Disney's been supplementing Reedy Creek since it was created.
Mm-hmm.
Disney's not going to do that anymore.
Right.
So Reedy Creek, or whatever the Central Florida Tourism District or whatever they call it now because they had to rename it, they're not going to have the same budget they had before, but they still have the same requirements. And it's ultimately the people of Florida that are going to have to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people look at their tax bill after this whole fiasco, this little vindictive fiasco that DeSantis put together, they're going to realize, well, maybe we shouldn't have reelected him for this. Maybe he's having a hard time keeping politics out of business and keeping it from being personal. And, that's really what it was. It was his own little
Absolutely.
crusade.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, when the Florida taxpayers get their bill, that's when you're going to start seeing things change. And I think what's going to happen is by the time he goes to run for president, those tax bills are going to be in. And it's going to seriously impact his ability to raise money for his campaign. That's just what I think. I'm not a fortune teller myself. So that state down there of flux is really not going to be that big of an impact. Disney's the number one job maker in the state.
Absolutely.
Do you really want to piss him off and have him leave the state?
And that's the thing, because there are a lot of people who, don't forget, there were a lot of people from California where the Disney company was transferring a lot of jobs from California down to Florida. And now there are a lot of people that are like, I don't know if I want to go down here in this hostile environment right now, the way that things are. So now there's, some various talk going back and forth of, well, maybe we should wait 2 years before, making this change, that maybe California is the better idea. And of course, there's, all the different people saying that, gee, I wonder what Florida would be like if Disney decided, you know what, we're going to just up and move Walt Disney World to a different part of the country.
Right.
And see how quick,
I mean, you're going to, it's Disney is such a huge part of the economy down there that all they have to do is move one division that they have down there. And you're talking thousands of jobs that move out of the state.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the response. It's a direct response to DeSantis. He can't afford that bad press.
No.
And the only reason he's doing the things he's doing now and the other stunts that he's doing, it's not just Disney centric. The whole stunt with the flying migrants up to Democrat cities and his whole stance. I love the fact that he's got this major stance against border security. Somebody really needs to tell the man he doesn't have a border with another country with his state. He doesn't. So you don't have border security.
Right.
So he's doing all this just for the publicity he needs to gain national attention so that he can make a run for 2024. After 2024, assuming he doesn't win, after 2024, he's going to be relegated to the crap pile of history at that point in time.
He's going to be wishing he had a job at Disney.
Yeah,
hopefully.
because he's burning every bridge there. Because what's Disney going to do? They bought They thought they bought him as a politician because they backed his original election. What's going to happen when your politician that you bought doesn't vote in your favor? You're going to go buy another politician.
Right, exactly.
And the last thing you want is to have literally one of the largest corporations in the world, again, a company with more money than God, backing a politician other than you in the presidential race.
Yep.
That's never going to end well for a DeSantis.
No.
And that's exactly what's going to wind up happening.
Here's to hoping.
Plus all those voters that they have down there.
Oh,
all those
absolutely.
taxpayers that they have down there that are getting screwed by DeSantis. Does he think they're going to vote for him for president? If he gets into a pissing match with Disney when he's just a governor of a state, what's he going to do as president? He's not going to be looking out for these people.
No.
So he's burning his own bridges. So by 2024, between him and Trump tearing the Republican Party to the ground and literally just burning it to the ground, he's not going to have anything after 2024. So I'm not worried about any of that stuff.
Okay.
But, Iger's staying out of that now. It was
Right.
funny how he was commenting on it when Chapek was steering the ship in the wrong direction.
Right.
To
try and get him.
Right. Chapek already had the company in the ditch, and he was over there kind of poking a stick in his cage about it.
Right.
Now that he's back in charge, he's not saying anything about it. He's
No.
tight-lipped about the whole thing.
Which is the way it needs to be.
Exactly. So the one thing I did see is that they're doing away with the parking charge.
Right. We did see that was, one of the things that did go away.
And that helps me to justify going down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really been one of the only things I've seen kind of come back. I know they were talking about the reservation system, that
Right.
they were still leaving that in place, but they were opening it up for more people. The park hopping, changing the time on that to make it more accessible. I think they were starting to do some of the annual passes.
Right. They were doing the extra
Again.
magic hours in the morning. They were expanding out to other resorts.
Right.
The
So
problem is Chapek dug a huge hole. that
Right.
He's got to claw his way out of before he wins people like me back.
yeah.
And I wasn't a big fan of Iger's to begin with.
Right.
So he's going to have to, he's got his work cut out for him.
Right.
I would want to be in his position. And I don't think he's going to be able to fix all of this stuff in 2 years.
No, I think a lot of it's going to take time because it's one of those things. They were so quick to make the changes in the first place, and then of course you had the pandemic that kind of escalated it.
Kind of breathed down, was
So-
breathing down everyone's neck about it.
Right. So like now you have, they're starting to do dining options again, like not the traditional dining plan that they had before, but something,
And they got to get rid of the Genie Plus. Oh my God.
they're not though. That's the problem. Genie Plus isn't going
They'll
anywhere. They're
never-
modifying it
They'll
again.
never win me back
Right.
with Genie Plus. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was a waste of money. It was a terrible experience.
Mm-hmm.
I walked out of Disney for the first time in, 18 years that we've been going? 15 years that we've been going? Walked out of the first time and felt like I didn't get my money's worth out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're paying Disney money,
Right.
you damn well better feel like you're getting your money's worth out of it.
No, I agree. I was very disappointed with it as well, but you never even you never felt like you had that with the fast passes. Like you didn't have to really learn how to navigate it. It was there were probably people when FastPass first started that had a hard time with it and didn't quite understand how to make it work and that was
once you're going to hang a fast pass, you could make the system work for you.
right.
There's no way the Genie Plus works for anybody.
I don't know. That's the thing is I think we probably needed to do a little bit more research. But that's
it's
the
a
other
broken system, though.
but that's my whole point is that I shouldn't have to take a college course in how to use Genie Plus before I go on a vacation. That's where
And the thing is, they build it as being Anybody can use it. It's super convenient. You do everything through the app. Everything's wonderful.
Right.
Well, one, I'm paying for it. Two, it has built-in restrictions that doesn't even come close to comparing with FastPass the way it was.
Right.
Three, the app was terrible.
Right.
It was confusing. It didn't always work. Oh, and you got to kill your phone battery just so you can get around the park.
Right, exactly.
Terrible idea.
Right. The idea is I'm on a vacation. I shouldn't have to be constantly on my phone. Like when they had FastPass Plus, when they had the FastPass system, you know, as long as you knew what time your FastPass was for,
it was simple. It
you
was
didn't
easy.
need to be on your phone.
I could do all that on my phone, or I could go to a kiosk, or I could go to a park cast member in the park. I got options.
Right.
And that was free.
Right.
I'm paying for a system that they've deliberately handicapped now.
Right.
So as long as that's in place, they're not going to get me back. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I agree.
So, sorry, Bob, but it's an uphill battle. I wouldn't want his job.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even want a salary for his job, to be honest with you.
It's gonna take a while. It's not something that's gonna.
But that's the thing. He doesn't have a while.
He doesn't have a while. Yes, I know. Well,
so
and
unless
maybe
he's making revolutionary changes, they're breathing down his neck about $5.5 billion that they didn't lose, that they want back because they're not making money fast enough. That's what they're concerned about.
And that's the thing is, where is it that you're cutting these jobs? Is it from, you know, certain divisions? Is it a little bit?
They didn't ramp back up from the cuts from COVID.
Right. And that was going to be my next thing is I know that there are still cast members from the parks that never got called back because they just never opened up that section of the park or, you know, where they had worked before. So that's okay. How many, you know, are these new cuts? Now what are you going to cut? What are you closing? Or is it, you know, that's the whole thing.
What service am I losing now when I go down?
But I'm paying
you're
for.
You're not going to cut the price.
Right.
You're going to raise the price and cut the
because you need to
service
make
again.
them right because you need to make the money now.
So I'll wait for the dust to settle and figure out who his successor is and how bad they are.
Yeah, I guess
before
we'll
I
have
go
to
back
see.
down. Anyway, okay, we haven't had a chance to bash Disney in a while. It's good to
see. Do you feel better now?
I do. I feel like there's a weight lifted off of me now. This was such a great de-stressor for me.
I'm so glad.
So that's all we had today. Before we do go, I want to once again invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. Audio versions of this podcast can be found listed as Insights into Entertainment. You can get audio and video of all of our podcasts listed as Insights into Things. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, etc. I would also invite you to write to us. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com.
You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/insights_things.
We do stream 5 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/insightsintothings.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast.
You can find us streaming 6 days a week on YouTube, as well as all of our videos on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings.
You can find us on Instagram at instagram.com/insightsintothings.
Or you can find all that and more on our official website at insightsintothings.com. That's it. Another one in the books.
Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome
Welcome to Insights into Tomorrow, where we take a deeper look into how the issues of today will impact the world of tomorrow. From politics and world news to media and technology, we discuss how today's headlines are becoming tomorrow's reality.
Welcome to Insights into Tomorrow. This is episode 18, Artificial Intelligence. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my co-host, Sam Whalen.
Hey, everybody. You believe we've done 18 of these?
18, wow. We're on a roll.
Wow. We'll get to 100 in no time.
Yeah, we kind of have fallen off of our cadence of monthly podcasts on this, haven't we?
There's just nothing to talk about.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you steer away from all the controversial topics.
Exactly.
So this week we're going to talk about a nice, safe topic, and that is artificial intelligence.
No dire implications with that.
So you know how this one's going to end, folks. So is the future of AI more like HAL 9000, Skynet, and The Matrix? Or is it more like WALL-E, Star Trek's Commander Data, or C-3PO from Star Wars? Some of the world's most brilliant minds, like Michio Kaku and Stephen Hawking, recognize the tremendous potential for artificial intelligence, but also offer words of caution at its development. Is artificial intelligence the next step in our evolution, or the first step in our ultimate destruction? How will AI impact humans? How will AI impact what humans create? And could humans be entirely removed from the creative process? That's what we'll be discussing on today's episode of Insights into Tomorrow. But before we do that, I'd like to take a moment to invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Tomorrow. You can find both audio and video versions of all the network's podcasts listed as Insights into Things. And we can be found anywhere you get a podcast these days: Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, etc. I would also encourage you to write in, give us your feedback, tell us how we're doing, give us suggestions on what you'd like us to talk about. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can find us on Twitter at insights_things, or on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast. Are we ready?
Yep, let's get into it.
Let's go. So what is artificial intelligence? So John McCarthy, head of computer science department at Stanford University in 2007, defined artificial intelligence as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines, especially intelligent computer programs. It's related to the similar task of using computers to understand human intelligence, but AI does not have to confine itself to methods that are biologically observable.
Like a brain.
Exactly. And this is kind of a different approach to artificial intelligence than what has traditionally been the measure of artificial intelligence. And that was really something called the Turing test that was created by Alan Turing back in the 1950s. So the Turing test basically said if it's observable and convincing enough to be a human. The test basically was two people having a conversation, a third party watching that conversation, and if the third party watching that conversation, it's all text-based, can't distinguish the AI for the human, then it's passed the Turing test. So kind of a loose definition of what AI was back at the time there. So it was basically how well it could emulate a human being. But I think AI has changed significantly in that time, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have to, change what we define it as well. It's not just text-based. It can do way more than that now. It's expanded, pretty exponentially since then.
So what is a modern take on artificial intelligence?
So we have some information here from Stuart Russell, professor of computer science at the University of California, Berkeley, and Peter Norvig. I apologize, Peter, if I mispronounced your name there. He's the director of research for Google, published Artificial Intelligence, A Modern Approach. It became one of the leading textbooks, I believe this is Norvig's book, in the study of AI. In it, they delve into 4 potential goals or definitions of AI, which differentiates computer systems on the basis of rationality and thinking versus acting. So we have the human approach, systems that think like humans, systems that act like humans as well, and the ideal approach, systems that think rationally, and then systems that act rationally. Turing's definition would have fallen under the category of systems that act like humans. And there's a little bit more here that I'm going to keep reading. I didn't realize that was part of it. At its simplest form, artificial intelligence is a field which combines computer science and robust data sets to enable problem solving. Basically, we're making these things as a sort of extra brain to help us out. It also encompasses subfields of machine learning and deep learning, which are frequently mentioned in conjunction with artificial intelligence. These disciplines are comprised of AI algorithms, which seek to create expert systems which make predictions or classifications based on that input data.
So AI right now, some of the biggest things in AI right now probably are algorithms. You know, you have the famed Google algorithm for searches, and you know they apply it to YouTube. And is the algorithm itself that basically looks at usage patterns and what you're doing online, and then determines what else you would like? Is that considered a form of artificial intelligence?
I think it would be. I mean, it's interpreting data and then I guess projecting and it's making its own conclusions based on that data and then sort of showing you that conclusion, right? So if you click on something on Instagram and you read the page long enough and you go back to Instagram, it'll have more things like that. Or it happens to me all the time because every device is listening to you all the time. You mention a product and then 5 seconds later an ad for it pops up on your Instagram, or you text somebody about it and the same thing. So it's definitely always watching and always learning.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think we've run into that in the house here because I've got a whole boatload of Amazon A products. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to actually activating. But that's the same sort of thing. That and Siri and what's the Android version of voice
Bixby?
Bixby, is that it? So all of these assistants are some type of artificial intelligence as well. But how intelligent are they really?
Not very.
Yeah, that's kind of like none of them are thinking on their own. They all require some level of input. They all require some source of data that they go out and get. Like if you ask the Amazon devices for information on something, they'll come back and tell you a Google contributor added this. So they don't even seem to compile their own set of knowledge. So it's almost like it's more of an interface to the web than it is really an artificial intelligence. It might be an intelligent way to interface with it, but we're not talking HAL 9000.
Right, it's not learning and adapting necessarily.
Right, and it can't take its own actions or anything like that. You know, when we get into stuff like that, we might be looking at something like a Tesla or a self-driving car, where it takes input from outside sensors and has the ability to make decisions on its own at that point in time.
Right.
That's where we tend to get a little bit more down the rabbit hole of how dangerous things could be.
Yeah, once you start getting into the territory, we transition out of this into our next segment of more developed intelligence, of where that could possibly go once something starts thinking for itself.
Right. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll dig a little bit deeper into the types of artificial intelligence that are out there. We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. Welcome back to Insights into Tomorrow. We're talking artificial intelligence today. So and I don't want to go through every line that we have here, just kind of throw a few things out there. So the types of artificial intelligence that we're really kind of referring to here can be broken into two categories. One's capabilities and the other's functionalities. So under your capabilities, you've got narrow AI. And an example of narrow AI is sort of like what we talked about with Siri, where, you know, it's also referred to as weak AI. It focuses on a narrow task. You could even classify IBM's Watson that was used for chess playing in something like this as well. It's not robust. It's not thinking on its own. You then get into your general AIs, and your general AIs tend to be a little bit more sophisticated. These are your strong AIs. You can understand and learn intellectual tasks that humans can do. So you're getting a little bit smarter with these, but the requirements from a hardware standpoint, you need a supercomputer. You know, the couple that are listed here are two of the fastest supercomputers in the world in order to accomplish this.
Yeah, and do we know what these? We have the Fujitsu K. Do you know what those are used for? Like what type of computing we're using these like intense supercomputers for?
Most of these are being used for simulating weather, simulating nuclear explosions without actually having to fire them also.
Oh, that's helpful.
They're highly complicated and powerful devices just to get this next level of AI. Mm-hmm. And then the last level of AI from a capability standpoint is what's referred to as super AI. This is where AI, this is your Skynet. This is where it surpasses human intelligence. None exist at this point in time, thankfully. But is this the direction that we're going as we're seeing this natural progression? Are we going to see super AIs?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I want that. And then you get into like the Blade Runner discussion of like what makes something human. When you give something a will of its own, like what we're getting into like deep sci-fi territory here. But I don't know if we would ever get to that point. If what would we need something like that for? I mean, maybe to like run a city, like monitor trains and public works and stuff like that on like a city level. I don't know. I don't know what we ever need something that smart for, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see from an infrastructure standpoint, most of what we do now, you've got positive train controls, a great example you just mentioned with trains, where if the human operator fails to make certain checks, the computer can kick in and run things safely or shut the system down safely. So there's lesser versions of that now, but I think seeing something like that on a grand scale might be something where a super AI would work. What about functionality-based AIs? Tell us about that.
So we've got the reactive machine. Reactive machine is the primary form of AI that does not store memories or use past experiences to determine future actions. It only works in the present. So an example of this would be IBM's Deep Blue chess playing computer. That thing's really cool, by the way. Yeah. I've seen some videos of that. It's really neat.
Garry Kasparov would differ.
We've also got limited memory AI, which trains from the past to make decisions. They do have a memory, but it's very short-lived. And an example of this would be used in self-driving vehicles, like we mentioned, Teslas, things like that. And then finally, we have theory of the mind. On this show, we like to say theater of the mind. It's kind of like that. Theory of the mind AI represents an advanced class of technology and exists only as a concept. They would require a thorough understanding of the people and the things within the environment, including understanding feelings and behaviors. There's no examples because they don't exist, but attempts at mimicking human emotion and automatons is as close as we can get.
One of the things regarding that is that people are trying to experiment with this, and they're doing it through the same type of training that they're using for Chat GPT and the other AI engines that are out there. We'll talk more about those in a little bit. But what they're doing is they're having human beings emulate emotions, facial expressions of emotions, sadness, happiness, that type of thing. And they're having multiple iterations of people doing these. They're sticking them in a database, and then they're having a computer look at these and interpret them. So just by facial expressions, they're trying to get computers to understand emotions. How effective do you think that would be? How effective would it be for you to have no other communication method whatsoever, but just be able to see someone's face? Do you think that they would be able to convey emotions accurately enough?
I don't know. It would depend on how they're measuring it, right? Like if you're looking at like specific muscle movements for like a frown versus a smile, but everybody expresses emotion in different ways. So you'd have to have some kind of baseline to do that. And I forget the name of it. We learned it in college, but it's that thing where you show us an image of a guy's face, and it's that effect where you can interpret it however you want. Like it's the same face over and over again, but if you interpret it as in he's happy, you can kind of see it, or he's sad, you can kind of see it. And so I wonder where you get into something like that, where it's like it's sort of a gray area of, well, is this person really happy? You know, that's when you have to go back to the baseline of if we're measuring facial tics or
Right.
certain, I don't know, visual ratios on your face.
Yeah, and I agree. And like, I don't know if I, as a person who doesn't need artificial intelligence, would be able to accurately understand emotions.
Right.
And then I look at the technology that we've had with facial recognition already, and some of the challenges we've had, where you had, for instance, Microsoft's camera technology that they had on their Xbox series. When that came out, not that many years ago, they only used Caucasian people to train it. And as people with darker skin, Asians, African Americans, and so forth, started using it, the technology didn't hold up.
Right.
And it was because of the way that the technology itself was developed and trained and
The foundation of it.
exactly. So it's like, if you can't get that right, then I have a very difficult time thinking you're going to get emotions.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You get into like user error at that point. If you're trying to emulate human behavior, but you don't account for the whole world, how are we going to apply this in any
Right.
practical sense?
Right. And that's why you'd almost have to think you need multiple forms of input: voice inflection, body movement, you know, the micro tics that people have. I could certainly see you coming up with enough data points that you could infer what emotions are, but you need to have those data points there, and it has to be more sensors than just trying to read someone's face.
Yeah, and do we need this? Why would we need this?
Right. And that's another point. You know, one of the implementations that people have talked about with this is customer service. You know, they had the one hotel in Tokyo that didn't last very long, that the front desk was entirely run by automaton.
I'm sure that was a blast.
And it was because they thought the automatons would interact better with people than people would, which I'm not really sure why you would think that. But the problem you run into is you get into that uncanny valley scenario where people are just creeped out by it. It looks enough like a human to make you think it is, but not enough to know it is. So it made people feel very uncomfortable. But I could see in a situation like that where you're implementing emotional stuff, detection, where you want to know if someone's angry. You know, do I really need to get a manager? Are you like stuff like that where you're interacting with people?
I could see that.
It's funny that they're exploring that path now when you have grocery stores that are doing away with their self-checkout because people dislike not having a human to deal with at a register now. So it's like, I don't know if it's a cultural thing, if it's a regional thing or what, but it seems people are kind of finicky.
Yeah, I don't know. And also, it's like, is it cost effective to build a robot to talk to people than to just hire someone for minimum wage to work at the front desk?
Right. That's a
And
very good
I know
point.
the argument is that, well, the robot could do it for forever, whereas we have to worry about this person, you know, their livelihood, and, you know, they need to go to the bathroom, take a break, things like that. Robots don't have to do that. But it's like, I mean, come on.
You don't have to contribute to a 401k with robots either.
Exactly. Yeah, you just got to swap out a few parts every once in a while.
Right.
So I don't know. And the practicality is where I get hung up on of how are we really going to use these things, and are they going to be worth the effort and time we're putting into trying to figure it out.
I agree, and I think it's almost like it's a fun school project people are working on. But the golden ring or the prize of artificial intelligence, at least as far as sci-fi tells us, is self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Self-awareness is where the AI, they only exist hypothetically right now, and only in science fiction for the most part.
Yeah.
But these are the types of systems that can understand internal traits and states and conditions and perceive human emotions. And these machines are smarter than the human mind, which is really what's terrifying, I think, to a lot of people. They'll be able to understand and evoke emotions in those it interacts with, but it'll also have its own emotions, its needs, its beliefs. This is where we get into things like a HAL 9000 from 2001 or Skynet or something like that. I don't know if anyone's shooting for self-awareness. Is self-awareness possible with today's technology?
I was actually just thinking about that because, you have in here about it having its own emotions and needs, and I think it would be more terrifying if it didn't have emotions, if it was purely logical, right? Because, you make a AI and it instantly determines that humans are bad for the planet and decides to wipe us out.
Right.
Because, we could make that conclusion, but we're also, we are humans. We're not going to wipe ourselves out, intentionally. So it's I don't know if we would get to the point where that's possible. I don't know. I obviously don't know anything about programming, but how would we program emotion? I guess, you're seeing the baby steps with this facial recognition software, but at what point are we able to program emotions? Is it something like using a human brain as the blueprint? I have no idea where this would go, but it sounds like fantasy, but one that is close enough to reality that, maybe, but I just don't know how they would do it.
And you make a very valid point there. I think humans in general have a very difficult time dealing with emotions, recognizing emotions, and coping with them already. I don't know how you would possibly translate that into software.
No, I think it would have to be, you can't, it's all math based, right? So you can't, that's the whole point of emotion. You can't quantify it, right?
Right.
Unless you measure heart rate, I guess, if you're angry or sweating or, biological reactions. But when it gets to the thinking about interpreting emotions, I just think it's too nebulous. And if we did have a self-aware AI, it would have to be, maybe based off of personality, or it would just be purely logical.
So then we're talking something more along the lines of RoboCop, where we take the ex-con and we stick his brain into the robot there, and that's the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I was thinking that, or in Halo, if you guys are familiar with that, they use a human brain to then make an AI.
Right.
So the AI is part human, kind of. Something like that, but I don't think we can do that yet, and I don't know how we would.
And you know what? I think that's probably the biggest limiting factor right now, I think, is our computing power.
Yep.
In order to produce the amount of computational power that the human brain has, you need the fastest supercomputer right now to even approach it. And I think until we get to, real practical quantum computing, I don't think we have much of a hope of even reproducing it. People, I think, don't understand how remarkably capable the human brain is.
A lot going on.
Yeah, how fast it operates, how many different things it can do at one time. And computers just haven't gotten to that point yet. Yes, computers are very good at doing the same thing over and over again. And they're very good at doing math. But they're only that good because humans make them that good.
Yeah, and it's when you get that line of where what we're creating is superseding us, that it's okay, well, maybe we've gone a little bit too far.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point where we can take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about, is artificial intelligence dangerous in its current form and future forms? We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. So Elon Musk wrote, "The pace of progress in artificial intelligence," he says, I'm not referring to narrow AI, "is incredibly fast. Unless you have direct exposure to groups like DeepMind, you have no idea how fast. It's growing at a pace close to exponential. The risk of something seriously dangerous happening is in the next 5-year time frame, 10 years at most."
Where was this quote from?
So this was from Elon Musk. I didn't see where the quote.
I just wanted to see if we were still in the window or not.
I didn't get a date on that, but I have to imagine we're pretty close to that window.
Any day now, the robot uprising is going to happen.
Well, the fact that he made cars that are self-driving and running people over and killing them tells me right now that AI actually physically is dangerous.
He can make himself sound smarter by just becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So, what do you think of that? I mean, I think there's a lot of scholars, there's a lot of scientists that talk about AI. Elon Musk is a guy who's neck deep in it. He's building them. He's releasing them. You see what we do. SpaceX has rockets that fly back to Earth and land themselves. Tesla has cars that can drive themselves and park themselves and stuff. So that's real practical AI that's in the world now. How serious do you think you take this kind of warning from Elon Musk?
Not that seriously. Just because I don't see any like real world application of this idea, right? I also don't know what DeepMind is, but it sounds very scary. But I just don't think. I don't know. I feel like we would be seeing more examples of it, other than the Teslas running people over and causing traffic. But that's just faulty hardware. That's not necessarily, the AI thinking for itself and choosing to kill all humans. That's a functionality issue, right? So I don't know. I don't think it would be this quick. I just think we would see more implementation of AI in our day-to-day lives for it to then turn into something dangerous. The most I could see it being is like an over-reliance on computers and AI instead, and when then they malfunction, then you have problems like the recent airport, the FAA systems went down, things like that. Things where we have large-scale operations being run by AI, and then the AIs break, and then we have a problem.
So Musk was quoted in a separate quote comparing AI to the dangers of the dictator of North Korea. Now, yes, it's Elon Musk, so there's a lot of...
Take it with a big old grain of salt.
there's a lot of self-promoting, angles that he goes through here. But we've got artificial intelligence in machines that are capable of killing people. Not designed to, but capable.
Right.
We also have it designed into devices that are designed to kill people. You've got Predator drones that are AI driven. You've got Tomahawk cruise missiles that are AI driven. You've got Phalanx Sea-Wiz close-in weapon systems on ships that are AI driven. These are machines that are built already to kill and are powered by AI. Are those potentially dangerous, or do you think we have enough control over those?
Well, I mean, they're weapons, right? So they're inherently dangerous. It would be more about, again, I just think, are we shooting for the notion of them like rising up and like actively trying to kill people? Because I think it would be much more realistic for them to just be taken over by another human, right? To have somebody hack into them, or to have them malfunction, and instead of targeting here, you're targeting somewhere else where you're not supposed to. I just don't think it would be the AI necessarily choosing to to kill a bunch of people. I think instead it would be a malfunction.
So to paraphrase, we're hoping that it's humans that are the problem,
Right.
and not the AI that's
Exactly.
the problem.
And we can count on that.
Yeah, to a certain extent, that logic makes sense, because you can count on that human factor. Like, it's very likely that you would have a foreign entity attack our infrastructure here before I think you would have an AI go rogue and shut down the power grid.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you're not gonna, like, you talked about the Predator missiles. Like, the Predator missile's not gonna wake up one day and go, "Hey, I'm gonna go blow up that town." Someone's gonna have to tell it to go do that. It doesn't. We're not at the point where these things can, like, actively, pursue missions or pursue goals on their own unless they're told to by somebody else, like an operator.
So, all right, let's run with that for a second. So they're not going to rise up. You're not going to have a Skynet take over the world and nuke the entire world. But you have machines that are trusted to go do a job that may involve violence. If those machines can then be usurped by a nefarious third party, and our trust in those machines allows them to continue to do their job, and they get usurped, we have a new target designation.
Right, exactly. And that's I think where you get into the real world danger of this. But I mean, that's our world in general has a heavy reliance on computers, right? And so I think that comes with the risk, right, of the ease of use and the scale of our operations. You need something like AI to run it, because it's not feasible for people to do it all the time. And I think that just comes with the territory of, if this is how we're going to run things, then there's a chance that someone could take it over. It's no different than, well, it's different, but we're reducing a little bit. But if you had a gun and someone took your gun and killed you with it, it's the same thing.
So AI is the tool.
Yeah.
It's not the intent.
For now, yeah.
Okay.
Until we get to the point where, we have a fleet of drones that are, flying around the globe just taking pot shots wherever they want, that are programmed. Well, I guess they wouldn't be programmed at that point. But I'm saying, like, instead of a fleet of jets flown by pilots, if it was a fully automated, a bunch of drones where they could all communicate and make their own decisions, once they get into that level of autonomy, that's when you're running into more of an AI-based issue, I think.
So Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, we're
getting all the banner people out here today.
He said at one point in time, artificial intelligence is the future, not only for Russia, but for all humankind. It comes with enormous opportunities, but also threats that are difficult to predict. Whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will become the ruler of the world.
That's a little extreme.
First off, do you agree with that?
I mean, I guess, because at that point, wouldn't you just have the strongest army too? If it's, he says it's got enormous opportunity, right? So then by that logic, you would, unless those unpredictable threats like make it worse for you. I don't know. Like, I don't think it's any different than having the strongest standing army, right? And whoever has that, you're by default the most powerful, unless you control like the economy. That's different. But in terms of like military force, if you have a bigger or more effective army, yeah, you're going to be more powerful, right?
So, do you think that in order to combat nations, like assuming Russia's gearing up towards artificial intelligence, do you think the only way to combat nations like that is with your own artificial intelligence?
I think so. I mean, that's how these things usually go, right? Like an AI arms race, which, hey, sci-fi authors out there, that's a free title. But, yeah, I just think it's going to... and you're going to dig yourself into a hole, right? Because the more we go into this AI route, the more you're getting into these threats that are difficult to predict, like he's talking about. So the further we go with this technology, the more we're getting on that edge of accidentally making something that could either get its own intelligence or something that is more likely to be, like you said, usurped and used against the, whatever country's making it.
Okay. Now we're talking AI in actual active weapons there, but there's potential danger elsewhere too. What about social manipulation? What do you think AI could do from a social manipulation standpoint? I mean, so far we've had social media, I don't want to say usurped because it's being used as it's designed.
Right.
But you've had situations where you've got Facebook and the whole Cambridge Analytics, and you've got Twitter trying to, all the Twitter files coming out now telling us how people try to manipulate elections and stuff. Where do you think AI falls in there? Is AI, is that algorithm as you go through your social feed? Is that AI manipulating you in such a way that it could be dangerous?
Absolutely. And I think that this is where you get into the things that are much more real world dangers, right? Especially when it comes to things like social media, you run into that echo chamber issue where you're only hearing ideas and things that reinforce what you think. So you never hear anybody else's ideas, for better or worse. But generally, I think that's a bad thing. I think that you should be able to, see ideas from everybody and then interpret them how you want. But when you get into this with social media where you're seeing the same things over and over again, it just reinforces your own beliefs and makes you double down. And it makes everybody closed-minded and more isolated from each other and more extreme in their beliefs, too, in certain situations. So I think when you're getting into things like that, and like you said, the Cambridge Analytica thing where it's straight-up manipulation of people, I think when those have real-world consequences, which they did and still do, I think that's much more dangerous than worrying about a drone going rogue or something like that.
Well, surely manipulating the mindset of common citizens isn't something that's unique to AI. I mean, you had the Nazi Germany had an entire propaganda ministry that was designed to do that. You've had this type of thing that was driven by humans for hundreds of years now. What does AI bring to the plate that makes it any more dangerous than just humans doing this type of activity?
I think it's the scale and the pace of it, right? So AI is very good at learning. That's what it does, or at least whatever. I'm talking about the algorithm in social media.
Right.
It's good at learning what you do, what you look at, and I think it can do it at a pace and with an effectiveness that humans just can't do, or can't do as fast, or on such a big of a scale. I mean, a human could look at what you do on Twitter, what you click on, what you like, but it would take them much longer to figure out, okay, well, what should I serve them next in their timeline that they'll click on, versus an AI looking at it and figuring it out like that. So I think it just makes it more effective and efficient, honestly.
That's a very good point. So the other one that they talk about is invasion of privacy and social grading. I don't know if we've never really talked about social grading in the past here. It's being done in some Asian countries already, where depending on what your reputation in social media is how you're treated in society. But I've seen this in sci-fi as well, where it's extremely emphasized in how people treat you. But from an invasion of privacy, you brought up a very good point of, well, everything's listening, and if I say something, I start getting advertisements. Is that a bad thing that you get targeted advertising?
I think it depends on how you look at it. I know people that feel like they're being manipulated. They'd rather it be not targeted and just give me what I want.
That's what targeted advertising is they give you what they think you want. Without targeted advertising, you're just going to get a bunch of crap thrown at you there. I mean, is that really a bad thing that you get targeted advertising?
I think when you, the people that have issues with it, I think they see it as of being manipulated, that even if it's something I want.
Well, advertising is manipulative.
It's true, which is why it's so effective.
That's the definition of advertising.
I know. I just think it's I think people have an issue with it because it's that invasion of privacy of, even in my own home, I'm being sampled for data and it's being regurgitated back at me so I can become a better consumer. Eventually it just feels like it's all boiling down to you just pumping money into the economy.
Okay, I'll buy that.
It is effective though if you're a business owner.
Absolutely.
From a capitalist standpoint, it's great.
Yeah, exactly. One of the other ones they talk about is misalignment between our goals and the machines. And this one, I don't know how much of a problem this was. The great example they give is you get into a self-driving cab and you say, get me to the airport as quickly as possible. Okay. But if the machine itself is doing what it thinks you've asked it to do, that could involve exceeding the speed limit. It could involve dangerous driving. It could involve driving into the river that's between you and the airport to try to get you there. I think this is kind of a silly example of, this is no different than people following their GPSs off the road, is this something we need to worry about? Where if we're putting our lives in the hands of these machines at some point in time, and you know they're already talking about having air taxis to the airport and stuff like that. So you're ramping up the level of complexity and the level of danger associated with the reliance on these machines. Is it possible that somebody misses a line of code that says stop at stop signs? Is that a danger?
I mean, not really, right? If these things are being put out on a global scale, surely they would test them, right, and see if that's an issue. You've had some issues with this with self-driving cars where they have malfunctions, where they'll, I saw one the other day where a Tesla was in like a tunnel and just stopped, and I don't know why, and then like 8 cars hit it. So things like that will happen, but I think if you're talking about like the foundation of the code getting out there, that's something's wrong with it, I don't really think you have to worry about that. I feel like it would be extremely irresponsible of whatever company is making it to put it out there, not having it be fully vetted, especially when you're getting into like transportation and things like that.
There was one example of a Tesla that was driving on a highway at high speed, which they supposedly excel at. They're very good at that because that's how the sensors work best and the computer works best and everything.
Going fast?
On a highway situation where they're not doing stop and go traffic a lot. And what happened was there was a vehicle that was in the left lane that this thing was driving in, and it wasn't expecting a vehicle. It wasn't expecting a stationary target. And because they use LiDAR and they use radar, and they'll gauge the distance between themselves and the next machine. And the assumption is that machine is going to be moving so we can make calculations based on timing. And what happened was this vehicle was stopped in the left-hand lane. The device, the smart car, saw that the machine was there. But because it wasn't moving, it assumed that it was a glitch in the sensor, never tried to hit the brakes, and literally accelerated right through the vehicle. And it did everything it was supposed to do based on the rules that it had. And someone had missed a rule that said, hey, there's a chance that something could be stopped in your lane. You have to stop for it.
Yep.
And that got out there after all this extensive testing. That still got out there into production. So there's a chance that you can get code that's broken out there.
That's true.
How do you deal with that? Who's liable at that point in time?
I mean, probably the company still, right? I mean, it's still their self-driving car that rammed into it. I think the onus is still on them. Even if it's something that they could never predict, then don't make the technology. If there's a chance that something like this could happen, then maybe it's just not meant to be. Or we just go through the trial and error of, potentially people losing their lives until we figure it out and put out enough software updates, if you want to look at it in like a morbid sense. But I mean, there's things
that could be a high attrition rate.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I just think maybe at a certain point, if the body count gets high enough before you get version 4.0, maybe we just don't do it. Maybe we just stick to driving ourselves around, or we limit it to, certain public transportation options instead of every consumer having their own self-driving car.
And that's certainly a consideration to solve some of these things. And the last danger I wanted to talk about was discrimination. We had already kind of talked about this to a certain extent with
the social grading, and with the malfunction of the Microsoft camera system for minorities. How do you think this would have an impact on society itself from a discrimination standpoint? Either facial recognition AI. We had one situation very recently in our area here where somebody was arrested and held for, I think, 48 hours based on facial recognition that was completely wrong. So it's already happening. Is that a danger that we need to be aware of? Is there checks and balances that can be put in place? Should we not be relying on AI for this type of thing? I mean, yeah, no, we should not be. If this is gonna happen, yeah, I mean, sure, there's mix up with people getting held when they're not supposed to, and that's an issue for another day of the justice system and things like that. But I think that when it comes to things like this, where you're affecting people's lives, you should probably have a double check system or like a backup to be like, okay, well, the robot figured it out,